Welcome to the College Football Bros. I am Michael Newman, and on today's episode, I'm going to give a breakdown of USC headed into the 2022 college football season. At the end of the episode, I will give my win total prediction, but be sure to leave yours in the comments below. USC is one of the most difficult teams in all of college football to project this season, so just curious whether you're a USC fan of another Pac-12 school, or just a general college football fan, what your reasonable expectations are for the Trojans this year. Full disclosure, I'm a USC fan. I went to USC, but I will do my best to be as unbiased as I can possibly be in this breakdown. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. I think this is going to be the best offense in college football history. No, I do not think that, but this is obviously the more fun side of the ball to preview. Lincoln Riley coming in from Oklahoma, one of the best offensive minds in all of college football. He brings along Caleb Williams, top 3 quarterback, arguably, in the nation headed into this season. You've got Travis Dye transferring in from Oregon at running back, so that's kind of a nice 1-2 punch there. Travis Dye put up 1,600 all-purpose yards last season for the Ducks, and then you add kind of the third person to that triumvirate, a transfer from Pitt, the Biletnikoff Award winner, Jordan Addison at receiver. So just absolutely stacked skill position-wise, and behind Jordan Addison at receiver, there is a ton of talent, both in the way of transfers. Mario Williams coming over from Oklahoma, Brendan Rice coming in from Colorado, and also just guys that were on the roster that have the potential to break out. So the receiving core will be stacked. The skill talent just in general is going to be fine as long as everybody stays healthy. But the question mark for USC seemingly for the past several years running has been the offensive line. I don't quite think that's the case this year. If you look at Pro Football Focus ratings last year, I think they had USC as like maybe the best offensive line in the country. Now, I do not buy that for 1 second. That is just too hard for me to believe that they were that good, especially because USC struggled in the running game last year. But they definitely were a lot better than people expected. And I'm willing to accept that a lot of the run game struggles were due to scheme rather than personnel. So you'd think Lincoln Riley coming in would help solve some of those issues. I will say, if you're looking for the offense to not live up to the lofty expectations, the reasons that could happen would be depth of the offensive line. They have 5 or 6 guys that you feel good about, but after that, it gets pretty dicey. So if there are injuries up front, that could spell trouble for the Trojans. And then, of course, at quarterback. If Caleb Williams goes down, you could say that for 90% of the teams in the country. If their quarterback goes down, there'll be a pretty significant drop in play, but USC is no exception there. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. This defense was horrendous last year. They finished 106th in the country in SP+. It's almost impossible not to significantly improve from that headed into 2022, especially with a solid defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch, coming in. And USC did bring in a lot of solid transfers, I would say, on defense, but it's nothing like the offensive side of the ball, where they're bringing in award winners, all conference players. On defense, it's guys who are talented, but they're in a lot of cases, there's a reason they are transferring. And they lost some good players from last year's team too. Drake Jackson was their best pass rusher in a pass rush that was actually pretty weak. He's gone. They lose their top 4 players in terms of snaps in the secondary. So there are plenty of question marks on defense. One player that is not a question mark on the defensive line, D-tackle Tuli Tuipulotu. He kind of provides, I guess, a nice floor for your defensive line, but the surrounding pieces there are, I guess, a bit of a question mark. They brought in some transfers from Wyoming, K-State, TCU. Those guys were contributors at their old schools, but they were far from stars, so kind of remains to be seen what that D-line as a whole will be like. The pass rush needs to get a lot better, and there are no proven pass rushers on the roster. They brought in Romello Height from Auburn, supposedly had a very good spring camp, but we've yet to see him prove that in live action. Corey Foreman's another guy. He's a former number 1 overall recruit. This is his second year at USC. He really needs to take a big step up. He really needs to kind of emerge this year if USC's defense is going to reach its potential. At linebacker, Eric Gentry, another transfer from Arizona State. I think he's, arguably the best of the bunch. He was a freshman All-American at a real position of need for USC, so that's a big help. They also brought in Shane Lee from Alabama. He, I would say, is probably the favorite to be USC's leading tackler and has kind of emerged as a leader of that defense. But I would say his upside is possibly limited because of his lack of speed that I know a lot of Alabama fans lamented when he was on their roster. The secondary was pretty bad last year. Of course, the whole defense was bad, so it's hard to find a bright spot. I do like the Colorado transfer, Mekhi Blackman, at corner. I think he's a really good one. Other than him, there's nobody proven. There's no proven, like I said, all-conference type player. There's plenty of talent, and there's guys that maybe in short sample sizes showed some promise last year, but kind of remains to be seen. So long story short, the potential is there on defense at every level. There's guys that you can point to and say, hey, that guy could be good this year, but it's all kind of a hope right now. So I don't expect the defense to be very good. I would say as a USC fan, I'm just hoping for it to be decent. But let's get to the schedule. So that's my take on the team. How about the schedule? It is not difficult. According to the odds that are available at FanDuel right now, the only game USC is currently an underdog in is at Utah. So that gives the Trojans a chance for a really good season. But I will say a lot of these games that they're going to be favorites in are losable. There's enough games where they will be relatively small favorites that they're likely to lose at least one or two of those. The season win total right now in Vegas is set at 9.5. That seems high to me for a team with such a questionable defense and an offense that, while I expect it to be really good, could easily underperform with the lack of depth on the offensive line and potentially at quarterback. To me, the over-under should be 8.5. I'm kind of between 8 and 9 wins as far as my prediction. Ultimately, I'll say they lose 2 of 3 games, 2 of their 3 toughest games, at Utah, at UCLA, and Notre Dame. And then I'll say one other random game along the way they drop. Maybe it's at Stanford early in the season, at Oregon State. Even Fresno State at home is not a complete gimme. Jake Hayner's a really good quarterback. We saw him upset UCLA last year. So who knows? Just one of those games I say they will drop. So 9-3 is the official prediction. Nothing from 7-5 to 10-2 would shock me. Ultimately, I wanted to go 8.5 wins. If I could give you a decimal, that's what I would say. But I know Ryan would give me a lot of crap if I gave a decimal as my win projection. So there you have it, 9-3. Let me know if you disagree in the comments below. That's it for my USC preview. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll be back with more teams in the coming days. So see you next time.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.